Hi, this is Rick Frederick, reviewing Parsons v. State, an Alabama case from the late 1880s. So the victim in this crime was, or this action, was Bennett Parsons. He was killed by his wife Nancy and assisted by her daughter Joe, J-O-E. The evidence showed that Joe was an idiot, which we take to mean severe mental defect from birth. And Nancy was a lunatic, meaning she had intervals of, in this case, insane delusions. At the time of the killing, Nancy killed her husband, Bennett, assisted by her daughter, Joe. Nancy, believing that her husband had supernatural powers to inflict disease on her and was going to kill her. So, one of the things that's at issue here is if she actually believed the delusion to be true, would that be if it were true that Joe was going, or that Bennett was going to kill her using a supernatural trick, would that be a defense to the crime? This is an excellent case to read if you're interested in the development of U.S. Case law. A lot of good U.S. cases are reviewed, and some English cases are reviewed as well. You may not be aware of some attacks on presidents in the 1800s, but this case reviews them in some detail. So what happened is that the trial court charged the jury with instructions indicating that defendants must be found sane if they knew their acts were unlawful and morally wrong. And that delusions are no justification unless the delusional beliefs, if true, would excuse homicide. And we have a cognitive test. So it's a belief test. What did the person believe? Did they know it was wrong, or did the delusion cause them to believe that it was justified? Now, the defense argued for a different instruction. Now, you can go back and read Pike to get this idea that is floating around American law in the 1800s, which is whether the criminal act is an offspring or a product of mental disease. And then secondly, we get into this impulse prong of that the jury should be told that the defendants are not guilty if they were moved to action by insane impulses. So the jury, I think the jury only got the original instruction, but the jury convicted the defendants and they appealed. And the issue was, is the McNaughton test a strictly cognitive test, an adequate test of legal responsibility given the current state of knowledge? The answer is no. Of course, now this is not a Supreme Court case, so it's a district case, a regional case, where the law prevails now in this region. So it's the Alabama Supreme Court. And so they, again, as I said, they reviewed many English American cases. Isaac Ray, Bryce, who is famous in Alabama, Bryce State Hospital, is the main state hospital. And they did not like the McNaughton rule as a single test of insanity based on what they called 100-year-old medical theories. Now, you wouldn't really think that the 1800s were a hotbed of medical insight into psychiatric illness, but this was the 1880s, and they thought that they were moving in on answers to what mental illness was and how it came to be. So the insane asylums were full of residents who would always pass the cognitive test, who, as the management of inpatients, depends on a belief that they can tell right from wrong, and you tell them what to do and they'll do it. Anybody that's worked on a psychiatric ward understands that such wards work on a system of rules, and you expect that the individuals on the wards will follow the rules, that they can understand it despite maybe serious mental disorder. Okay, so the analysis is that it's really moving towards not just a cognitive test, but an impulse prong. So there are two elements here: capacity of intellectual discrimination. Can you tell right from wrong? And then freedom of will. Can you choose between right and wrong, even if you can tell the difference between right and wrong? And that's what Nancy Parsons is claiming. I really had no choice. I could not stop myself. My free agency was destroyed. Or could we just really understand that this never would have happened absent a mental disorder, that really her actions, and we're really talking about Nancy, not Joe the daughter. Okay, Joe the daughter is an assistant. Nancy is the person who has the delusion and instigates the crime, gets Joe to help her. But was it so connected with mental disease that it was essentially a product of it solely? So they end up with this. I've simplified it greatly from what they presented, but this little stepwise guide: was there a disease of mind? If no, we're not talking about insanity. If yes, insanity is possible. Did he know right from wrong? She, in this case. If not, then we stop there. But if they did know right from wrong, that it was wrong to kill Bennett Parsons, had she lost the power to choose between right and wrong? And was the crime so? Was it a product test, as in Pike, and later to be applied in the 20th century? Okay, so that is Parsons v. State. Thank you very much.